I'm going,
Recording in progress.
please, you guys, mute your phones. Please, 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 please. Okay, now I need. Okay, it was up and now it's back down.
Said unmute, so I must believe it.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to go in and mute
I just put a new
everybody
one in.
individually. So I am doing that. There are way too many of you that are not muted.
She said it says I've been muted.
Okay. Okay, I think I have everybody muted. I'm gonna turn her camera off. Okay. Who is that? All right. Okay. Okay, then I can reverse this thing. All right. Okay, so we're on there. So I don't know if you guys were noticing, but there's a lot of you on here. We have a lot of people in this class. And if you do not mute your phone, everybody else hears everything that's going on amplified on your end. And then it also takes the screen away from filming this side and it directs it to you. So you probably don't want people seeing what's going on at your house. I don't know. You could be sitting in your jammies, who knows? But or you could be naked. You could be sitting there naked. And you don't want people seeing that. So, yeah, so once you log in, all you have to do is at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a whole bunch of little indicators, and one of them looks like a microphone. When you touch that microphone, it should put a red line through it, and that means you're muted. Okay. All right, so I'm going to try to get all of this filmed. Does this look decent on the? Okay, perfect. Okay, I'm going to try to film as closely as I can so that you can see what I'm doing, but we're going to go over basics. So today we're going to start with the basics so that everybody has the sound foundation and we're all starting from the same place. So the first thing that we want to do is no matter what machine you have, you need to have feed dogs down. Okay, on my machine, the 880, it automatically lowers my feed dogs when I tell it that I have the number 72 foot on because it knows that you don't use that. For most of the rest of you, you're going to have to manually do that. For those of you who have Bernina machines, if you don't know how to lower your feed dogs, there's a button on the right-hand side of your machine. If it's depressed all the way in, that means the feed dogs are down. If you look at your screen, it'll show a yellow indicator on your screen that means you're not in default anymore. Default is the feed dogs up. And it'll show the feed dogs below this little line. It should be yellow. You have your feed dogs down. On your 880, you don't need to worry about it. 880 and 990, you don't need to worry about it. Okay. I have oiled my machine. I am in good shape. I have a new needle in and I've oiled my machine. Please make sure you start with a well-oiled machine. One of the side effects of not keeping your machine lubricated, particularly Bernina's, is you will get skip stitches and thread breaks. So make sure you have oiled your machine. You want to have your single hole throat plate in. Single hole throat plate is the throat plate that just has the hole in it, as opposed to the throat plate that has the wide thing in it. So you can do zigzags, okay? You want the single hole. All right? Please mute your phone. Somebody unmuted themselves. Please mute your phone. Okay, there will be time you can unmute your phone and ask questions. I'll do stop points and you can unmute and ask questions. But please, for the love of God, mute your phones while we do this.
Okay.
There's way too many people on this for people to be unmuted. Okay. By the way, this is being recorded. I will send a link out afterwards for the recording so you can go back to it as you need to.
Yay.
Okay, please mute your phones. Please, please, please. Do I have to go in and do it again?
I don't know.
Okay. Participants, mute.
Who's not muted?
Robin Diltz is not muted. Faye Schneiderman is not muted. Let's see. Yeah, it's Robin Diltz and Faye Schneiderman right now. So let me, can I get to that without moving my phone? I cannot. I'm muting you. So here, mute. All right, so I manually muted both. Nope, and you unmuted it.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Okay, and then done. Okay, so what happens when you do that? You guys may have joined later. What happens when you do that is it takes the camera off what I'm filming and it shifts it to you. So that means everybody else has to hear what's going on in the room that you're in, and they have to look at your camera and not at the lesson. So I will stop and wait for you guys to touch the unmute button and ask questions periodically. So there will be a chance to answer questions. In the meantime, please stay muted. Okay. The glider. I know we've got somebody out there who was going to do this without the glider because she did not feel she needed it. I'm going to tell you, you're going to be really frustrated. You're going to need the glider. We have them. So if you need one, you know where you can get it. But the purpose of the glider, first of all, is it makes it so that this is really easy to move on here. And it also covers up all of these gaps where your feed dogs, the holes where your feed dogs go. It covers up the gap where your machine connects to your table. And it just makes this a lot easier to move around. Okay. You should have your quilt sandwich made. So for each month, we're going to go through and use a different size quilt sandwich. For this month, you needed 4 9.5-inch, or is it 9? 9-inch quilt sandwiches. So I have my backing, I have my batting, and I have my top. I do not have these spray basted. This is small enough, it's not going anywhere. I don't have it pinned. If you pin it, you'll have to stop as you're going through and doing your quilting and move the pins, and it'll be really frustrating for you. So I would highly suggest that you not pin it. If you use spray-based, you will run the risk of having thread breaks because the goo will build up on your needle, and that causes some issues. So do not spray-based, do not pin. When we get to some of the larger blocks, you can go ahead and just baste stitch those around the outside edge before we get to them. On these smaller blocks, it does not make a hill of beans difference if they're basted or not. They're not going to move. Okay, so in this month, we are starting with in the quilt diagram, which is on page 4, I think. Yeah, page 4. We are doing block number 6 in the quilt diagram. And as I said in the email yesterday, it's highly confusing because in the cutting directions, they didn't call it block 6, they called it corner 1. So whatever. Corner 1, we're doing that. So you needed 4 9x9s. This layout is the best layout for your backing fabric. So as you're cutting your backing fabric apart, if you follow this cutting order, you will use up less of your backing fabric than if you cut everything individually because, you know, they fit things underneath different pieces. Okay. obviously, since we're using different colors for all these different blocks, it doesn't make that big of a difference. What are we doing? Turquoise is the only thing. That's the only color that is. Yeah, the only thing I'm cutting in the turquoise is the thing that I just cut, this one right here. So your layout for the top can be however it fits your fabric. But this diagram will help you make sure you don't overuse your backing fabric. Okay? All right. Next. Next. I have a quilting needle installed. A quilting needle is not a top stitch needle. I know there are people out there that are all about, oh, let's use the top stitch needles. They're wonderful. They're made for this. They are not. A top stitch needle is made to go forward and back. It is not meant to go side to side. So the hole that the thread passes through in a top stitch needle does not have the same shape as the hole in a quilting needle. It'll stress your thread. On this particular design, it wouldn't be that big of a deal, but when we get into some of the more complex designs, you'll have thread breaks if you're using a top stitch needle. I'm using 80 weight Aurifil thread. You can use 40 weight if you'd like, if you really want to see the thread. 40 weight is fine to use. I'm using 50 weight. In either event, I would recommend that you use a 90-14 size quilting needle, a 90-14 size. That needle is going to be large enough, the hole and the groove in the front of it, that will accommodate that 40 weight thread, and then your 50 weight thread will be fine in it too. And you won't have a lot of thread breaks. Okay. Before we get started on stitching, we're going to lower the foot onto your sandwich, and you're going to make sure that your foot, can you see that? Can you see that on the screen? No.
Do we mark?
Hold on. Well, I'll show you marking in a minute. I don't think I can. I can't. So I'll just move this. All right. So sorry, I'm moving this whole stand trying to get you closer. Okay. So you want your foot to just barely skim. You don't want it pressing down on your fabric, but you do not want to see daylight, and you don't want to be able to slide anything underneath it. So you want it to just barely be skimming the surface of your fabric. Again, you will have thread breaks if you have a gap that is too big. It'll stress your thread. If your foot is too high and you can get something slid underneath there, you're going to have thread breaks. So make sure that your foot is adjusted on the Bernina foot. This little gold dial right here will raise and lower that foot. So you can adjust with this little gold dial. On the Westerly foot, you will adjust by using the screw on the side of the foot to raise or lower that foot with the screw. On other brand feet, I don't know what you're going to do. You're on your own. Okay, so now we're going to mark our first block. Let's see here. Get this pointed down to what I'm doing. There. Okay, we're going to mark our first block. So if we go to page, give me a second, I got to get to the right page. Right here, page 10. If you go to page 10 in your book, page 10 in your book, it says your finished size is going to be 6 by 6. Your first cut is going to be 9 by 9 or as close as possible. I mean, you're going to cut a bunch of that off. Okay, your second cut size is 6 by 6 plus your chosen sashing width. I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to cut it down to 6.5. So you're going to get this when we're done with today. We're going to make this. It will look like this when you have it stitched. Then we will cut it down to this. Okay. All right, so the very first thing we're going to do is we're gonna mark this right here on our block. So the first thing I want you to do is get yourself a ruler. And you're gonna mark a 6 by 6 square. And kind of try to center it. So I'm gonna go there. And there. And then I'm gonna switch my ruler over. Let's see, I need to go up like that there. And there and there. Okay, so I have my 6-inch square marked. Once I have my 6-inch square marked, I'm gonna take my crosshair square and I'm gonna center it in there, just like that. And I want to make all of these crosshair marks. I also want to mark that very center. So you see you have a little hole right there. So you want to get in there and mark that center. You need that center point. So you're going to mark all of these guys. I hope I'm using a friction. Oh, I am. Okay, so you should have that. You want to do that to all 4 of them. So now I'm going to do this one. I've already done 2 of them, so I only have to do 2. Okay, so again, I'm making my 6-inch square. Right here. Like so. And then I'm going to center my crosshair square. Make my center mark. And then all 8 points. And I guess a bunch of you are going to be using the sexy pens. There you go. Okay, so you're going to have 4 of those. So I'm going to stop for just a second, allow you guys to unmute, and anybody that has a question on what we've done so far, go ahead and ask your questions on what we've done so far. You will hit the unmute button, which means touch the microphone at the bottom left-hand side of your screen, and then you can ask a question. We'll get it answered. And then I'm going to ask you to remute yourself by touching the microphone again, at the bottom left-hand side of your screen.
Lisa, I have a question about my ruler foot.
Yes.
I have a Bernina 72 foot, and when I put it down and I lower it as low as possible, the fabric still slides right underneath.
Well, you do want your fabric to slide. It should slide freely. You
Okay.
don't want it to push into your fabric. So you
Okay.
shouldn't see an indent where it pushes down,
Okay.
but you don't want to see a whole bunch of daylight underneath the foot and over the fabric.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else out there?
Is it okay to do this on my sit down?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great, thanks.
You ain't got no feed dogs. You can't put your feed dogs down
No,
because you ain't got
no,
no feed
I have
dogs.
no glider either, so.
Put my feed dogs down, please.
On your right-hand side of your machine, there's a button. Look on the right, on the side of your machine. Push that thing all the way in.
Oh, this?
Now look at your screen. See your feed dog? It's yellow now.
Oh, thank you.
You see it where it's yellow?
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, that was a button.
that's a button. That's a button. Okay, so if there's no, are there any more questions? We all good out there? Okay, so we're gonna use our seam gauge. And we're gonna use, let me grab my ruler because I put them away, trying to be clean and tidy. And now I have to find it again. We're going to use, not that one. This one. We're gonna use this, which is, let's see, Spinifex number 4. And we're gonna use the 12-inch arc. So you need those 3 rulers out for this week or this month, whatever we're doing. So you need your 12-inch arc and Spinifex number 4. Okay. All right, so now I'm gonna reposition this thing so that it's pointing at my machine bed so you can see what I'm doing here. So hold on, let me reposition. And I think I'm gonna try to get, I'll try to get as close as I can get so you can see what I'm doing. Okay. Guys, what does that look like back there? Is it, can you see? Can you see what I'm doing though? If I, hold on, let me get my foot up, foot up, foot up.
Your thing up there.
There,
You need to be closer.
I need to be closer, all
Yeah,
right,
because it's not in focus.
all right. Ugh. I'm at the edge of the table, so I can't get much closer. Is that better?
That's better than it was. Yeah.
Okay, all right. We'll do that. I'll see if I can manage to do that with my elbow up in the air on this side, because this table is right underneath me now. Oh, geez.
It's really hard to film too when you're sewing.
Okay. Is that still okay?
Shows your ish, yeah. Cross yours.
Okay, all right. All right. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about what the seam gauge does. Okay, your seam gauge on one side is gonna have markings on it. On your foot, your needle is in this, or should be, unless if your machine's out of time, that won't be the case, but your needle should be in the center of your foot. So the circle that goes around it should be equidistant from the needle. It should be 1/4 of an inch from your needle to the outside edge of your foot. Okay, so if I want to sew on this line, I have 2 options. I can eyeball it and just sew on that line, knowing that there are no feed dogs helping me feed the fabric, so it won't feed straight. You'd have to guide it. Or I can use my ruler. But if I put my ruler on the line, and you know that the outside of the foot is 1/4 inch away from the needle, I will be stitching 1/4 inch inside of my line. I don't want to do that. I want to stitch on the line. So I'm going to use my gap seam gauge. And you'll see that says 1/4 of an inch. That's what I need to make up, 1/4 of an inch. So if I take this tool and I come here and I put it on the line on the left-hand side of the tool, and then line the ruler up on the right-hand side of the tool. When I then put my foot down, that is going to put my needle on the line. What?
I'm just laughing.
Oh. Okay, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna use your seam gauge to make sure that your ruler is straight. Oh, I didn't talk about, I should talk about, okay. I have this ruler and I have not put that white stuff that comes with your, this stuff. It looks like shelf liner. Yeah, it looks like shelf liner. So I have not put that on this ruler because on this ruler, I'm going to use Grippy. Okay. So I just put Grippy on that one. And
Can't wait to see how well that.
yeah, it should work just fine. It'll make it so that it doesn't slip. That's what this stuff is for. If you want to use this, if you don't have Grippy, you're going to have to use this stuff. So if you want to use this stuff, just use little bits of it because it does wear out. So, you know, tear off small pieces of it and put it where it doesn't cover up lines that you may need to reference. All of those lines are on those rulers for a reason. You're going to use those at some point or another. Okay. So I got my non-slip stuff on my ruler. I've got my seam gauge I use to make sure my ruler is a 1/4 inch away from the line I want to stitch on. This is the outside edge of the block, so I don't need to worry about pulling my thread up. So what I'm going to do is not sew, because why am I not sewing? Because I broke my thread, that's why. Or maybe it wasn't threaded at all. I guess I don't remember. Key point, you should thread your machine.
Excuse me.
Highly recommend you thread your machine. That just missed altogether. Okay. Let's try that again. Okay. By the way, once you get going on this, you will have that 1/4 inch down. So can you see the placement of my hands? I have my hand all the way flat on this sandwich and I'm moving that whole thing evenly and straight. Okay, I'm going to stop at the corner and then I'll pivot. And then I'll use my seam gauge to make sure that I'm a 1/4 inch off. A 1/4 inch off. We'll be using that seam gauge a lot in these blocks as we go. So in subsequent months, I'm not going to show you how to do this basting. So if you would have your blocks basted before we get started, that'll save us a little time because some of the stuff coming up, and you see I'm doing pretty big stitches here. Can you see that? I'm doing pretty big stitches here, so I'm not stitching very quickly, but I'm moving fairly quickly because I don't need these stitches to remain in. They're not going to be seen. Okay. And this will help keep my quilt sandwich from sliding around. You can do a couple of them and get those done. It's good practice for you to be moving the quilt sandwich. It'll get you used to working without the feed dogs. And it'll get you used to using the seam guide. Okay. Okay, now would be a good time if anybody has a question, unmute and ask whatever question you have, because we're going to get into stitching the actual design in a minute here. So if anybody has a question about what we've done so far,
Hey, Lisa,
yes, ma'am?
when we do this outside basting, it's not necessary to worry about bringing up the bobbin thread because we're going
Nope.
to cut this off anyway, correct?
Yep,
Okay, thanks.
yep.
And I have a question too. What stitch length should we have on the machine?
It does not matter. Your stitch length is going to be formed by how quickly you're stitching along with how quickly you're moving.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Anna's sitting on the floor over there. Anybody else?
When you're
Before we get-
using the arc, do you ever use the like little ruler pop socket or holder?
Pop socket or, oh, you mean those handles? No,
Yeah.
No, I found those to be really, really awkward.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you can get those, Westerly has those, you can get those and they attach to the top of the ruler, but you only have a hold of it in one place. And I'm gonna give you a little secret. When we start using some of these curved ones, the curved ones are probably the hardest to control. Because what happens is you're gonna rub that ruler against it, it's gonna push all like that. You see how the ruler is kind of moving in my hand? If you only have a handle right up in here, that ruler is going to move on you. So I find, especially for the curved rulers, it's much easier to keep your hands like this so that you have control on both sides so it doesn't move on you. Wait till we get to that spiral one. That one, I tell you, you really have to work carefully with that one or it's it'll move on you. Okay, and Miss Susie's over there. She's using her quilting gloves. Do you find that you need those for that?
I did a ruler work class with Amanda Murphy when I was in Arizona a couple of years ago, and she recommended it. And
Yeah.
it does kind of stabilize your grip on the ruler.
You like it for that? Okay. My hands still get, well, maybe they won't now because I've lost the daggone much weight. Now I get cold sometimes. Maybe my hands wouldn't sweat. Who knows? Okay, we're gonna go to the next step. Is anybody ready to go to the next step or should I wait a couple more minutes?
I just. What in my.
Okay, nobody's saying, so we're gonna go. Okay, so this is the design we're making. We're going to use this ruler right here to do this on the 4 petals, okay? And we're going to rotate with so let's talk about this for a minute. Okay, this is a spin effects ruler, which means it has a pinhole right there that you would use that ultra high-tech thumbtack that came with your set to hold in place on your fabric sandwich. Typically, this particular one, spin effects number 4, if you use the circle, I think it's just called the circle, that came with your set, and you did the circle, found the center of the circle and put the pin in, your petals would touch the circle all the way around. So you can make like a daisy or a, some kind of flower, because this will just ride right along that circle, sized the same way. We're not going to use this ruler that way for this block. This time, we're gonna nestle the foot in the bottom of the ruler and use that as our start and stop point. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's just get this done first. We'll do this piece first. So the very first thing we're gonna do, you have a key in your ruler. That's this thing right here that comes out. I've got mine taped in because I don't need to use the key. But if you wanted to pull this, put this ruler on or pull this ruler off, after you had already brought your thread up or after you'd finished the design and you didn't want to break your thread, you could take that key out and just slide it off. And then you wouldn't have to break your thread. But I'm not going to do that because it's a pain in the butt to keep that key there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower the needle till I know it's going to hit that center mark. Once I've decided that my needle is lined up, oh wait, you guys can't see. There. Once I know that my needle is lined up right over that center mark that I made, I'm going to drop my needle while holding the top thread with my left hand. Then I'm going to raise my needle and my foot, and I'm going to pull, and then I'm going to get my bobbin thread to come up. So there's my bobbin thread, right? If I can get a hold of it. There. There's my bobbin thread right there. So now I have my bobbin and my top thread on the top of my quilt sandwich. Okay, I am now going to drop my needle again into that center hole so that I can take this ruler and snug it right up against the foot. So you can see your foot just fits real snug right into the base of that ruler. On this ruler, there's a line right at the top, a straight line right through the middle of the top of this design. You're going to line that up with the diagonal line at, ooh, that's very fuzzy. There. You're going to line up this line with the diagonal line that you've drawn on your quilt sandwich. So your foot is down here, you're in the center, your needle is dropped in the center. The top of the ruler, there's a line that is right in the center of it. It should be laying on the diagonal line that you drew that goes to the corner.
Does it matter if you go diagonal or up and down first?
We're not doing up and down. We're not doing the 90 degrees. We're doing the, whatever that is,
Oh, God.
the 45
Yes,
degrees.
got it.
Okay, so now is when you need to pay attention to how quickly your hands are moving in comparison to how quickly your machine is moving. I have got the speed on my machine set right in the middle. Dang it. There. I've got the speed on my machine set right in the middle. And then I'm going to pretty much floor it. And that means that I'm not going to go like a bat out of you know what, because I have my speed turned down. So it won't go really, really fast.
It's sinking slowly.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'm going to start stitching. And I'm going to go around. And I'm going to stop right in the center. Okay. You do not want to shove the ruler against the foot. You will eventually knock the foot off of your machine if you do that. It will kind of nudge it loose. So periodically, if you think you're pulling too hard on your ruler, double check, if you're using the Westerly foot, double check the screw and make sure your screw hasn't come loose. And if you're using a Bernina, double check this lever and make sure your lever is down tight, because if you push too hard, you will knock that foot off. And I'm telling you, I have done that more than once. It makes the worst noise ever. Yeah, it is just, it's a terrible noise. Okay. When you get the first pedal done, you're going to rotate 180 degrees. So I'm going to do the pedal on the opposite side. So the first pedal I did is up here. Now I'm going to do a pedal down here. And the reason I'm doing that is so that it doesn't skew my sandwich. So if I did here, then here, then here, it could potentially push my fabric out of alignment. Probably not on something this small, but it's just a good thing to keep in mind, especially if you're doing one with more petals. Okay, again, you're not shoving against the ruler. You're just using it to guide. Okay, when I have that one done, I'm going to rotate up to the next diagonal. I did not mention you should have your machine set to stop needle down. If you don't, you should have your machine set to stop needle down. Okay, and then I'm going to do the fourth petal. So I've lined up this line with my last diagonal. Okay. So now I'm going to show you, we've done, that's it. That's the 4 petals for that block. So now I'm going to show you how you bring your bobbin thread up so you have a clean base underneath your quilt sandwich. So the very first thing I'm going to do is bring my needle up, bring my foot up. I'm going to slide my finger underneath here and pull that top thread out. Foot down, needle down, and then needle up, foot up. So now I have the thread I pulled out, I've made a stitch, and I have the thread coming from the needle. If I can get a hold of it. So if I pull on both of those, just like that, there is my bobbin thread right there. So I'm going to come through here, cut that off. And now there's my petal right there in the middle. Cut those threads to a semi-reasonable size. And then I'm going to take my side threading needle. And I'm going to thread 2 of those. And I'm going to shove it in between my layers. Well, dagnabbit. Let's try that again. Okay, that pulls those threads underneath. I would not recommend you try to do all 4 threads at once because you'll not get them all. So I'm doing 2 threads at a time. Okay. And that means I don't have any goobers on the bottom side of my quilt sandwich, and everything's buried and nice on the top. All right. So let's go ahead and do this particular thing on our 4 quilt sandwiches. Get some experience. This is all about experience, you guys. The more you do it, the easier it's going to be. Are you going to be perfect the first time through? No. Is anything worth doing easy?
I got one.
Dang it, I moved that. Okay. Okay. Okay, again, I'm brought my thread up, and now I have both my bobbin and my top thread. I line up that line. Stop needle down, rotate 180 degrees. By the way, the grippy on this ruler worked quite well. I would say that this is shifting on me less than the white stuff that comes in the package. So I would say I recommend this pretty highly. That might make the difference when we get into those big spiral rulers.
Lisa, can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
My machine just said error 1010.
1010 main sync error. That means you've got a thread jam.
Okay, so I'll have to watch the replay on the rest of this.
Yeah, you're gonna want to unthread the top, take your bobbin out, unthread the bobbin, check for, broken threads, loose threads, whatever's down in there, and then rethread both top and bottom.
Okay, great. And where will I be? Can you let us know at the end where I can find the replay?
Yeah, so I'm gonna send an email out with a link to the uploaded video. So you'll get an email from me a little later today.
Okay, thank you, Lisa.
Okie dokie.
Laura out.
Okay.
Got time to do it now, just while watching you.
Yeah,
She'll miss.
she'll miss because she'll be paying attention to what she's doing. That's fine. She'll have the replay. That's why we're recording it.
Oh, shoot.
Oop, I only got one thread. I probably should do both.
Oh, I did. That's what she was recording. I should keep on running.
You won't be the first one who said it while she's recording.
Are they saying, they're saying bad words over there?
Innocent, real.
Okay, there we go. And she gave up cussing for Lent too. How's that working out for you? All right. Are there any questions on this pedal before I move on to show you what to do with the arc? So there's only one other thing we're going to do this block. Anybody got anything?
Hi, Lisa, this is Joe. Will you
Hello.
just review the placement of the ruler to get that diagonal line on our drawn lines? I got 4 petals, but they don't look like they're supposed to be.
Okay, so where did I put that ruler? There it is. Okay, so your foot was down here. And right here, there's a line right in the top center at a 90-degree angle to the top of this pedal. That goes on the line that goes into the corner. And then you rotate and you go over here. And the same thing. So that line is on the line that goes to the diagonal. Then you also have another line over here that you can line up with this line. And one over here that you can line up with this line. So you know you're right in that corner. Everybody, can you see that, everybody? Okay. Any other questions on this? Yes.
Oh, does it matter if you do the pedals in 2 different directions?
No. No. So the question was, does it matter if you do one pedal this left to right and one pedal right to left? On this particular one, it does not. When we get to working with Spinifex number 36, it's an A to B. So that one you do have to go one side to the other. This particular one, it doesn't matter. All right. Let's do this next part. So the next part that we're going to do is going to be across the bottom of the block. And we're going to use our seam gauge again for this. Okay. So for this one, we're gonna start in the outside. So you don't need to bring your thread up. You're gonna use your seam gauge to make sure that the arc part of your ruler, and if you've measured properly, you have a line on each side of your ruler that should line up with your basting stitch going up both sides. Then you're going to use your seam gauge and you're going to make sure that that is a 1/4 inch below on both sides. And then all you're going to do is you're going to start outside your basting box, so you do not need to bring up your thread on this one. So you're going to go from one side to the other, and that should take you from the corner to the corner. When you get to the corner, you're going to do what's called traveling. Traveling is where you're going to stitch over your basting line until the bottom of your foot touches the seam that you just made. Then you're going to put your ruler back up there on the seam that you just made, and you're going to stitch back to the other side. Okay, so I have 2 parallel lines now. Now I'm going to stitch up. I'm going to travel up again so that the outside edge of my foot is sitting on the second seam that I just did. I put my ruler on the second seam that I just did, and I come back the other way. So what I've done is I've made 3 evenly spaced lines. I'm going to go out into my border. I'm going to cut my thread because I don't need to bury it for this. Okay, so I did the bottom side. Now I'm not going to do this side because I don't want to make a, it could go like this and make like a wrinkle in here. So I don't want to do that. I'm going to turn it 180 degrees and I'm going to come down here and do this side. Line up that line and that line with my 2 outside borders. Use my seam gauge to gap those 2 outside edges 1/4 inch below. That means that I will end up in the corner.
Do you need to travel up that 6-inch line? Or could you just go up and
Say again now?
could you go outside your 6-inch line?
Where you're traveling? Yeah, you could go outside. Okay, so I travel up. The bottom of my foot is now sitting on the seam that I just did. I put the ruler on the seam that I just did. I come back. I got off the reservation there. Travel up and come back. Go out into the borders and cut my thread. Okay, and now I'm going to do the same with the other 2 sides. They should be 1/4 inch apart. They're 1/4 inch apart because your needle is 1/4 inch away from the outside of your foot, and you're lining up the outside of your foot with the previous seam line.
So I should be putting the edge of my ruler on the previous seam line, not.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's not very pretty.
Oh, my thread did not cut. All right, and then I do the fourth side. Or the second, whichever side I'm doing. I'm doing another one. You're not gonna be perfect at this the first time you do it. You're not gonna be perfect at it probably the fourth time you did. Perfection is overrated. The only people who never make mistakes are the people who never do anything.
Did you do opposite sides?
I did. Okay. Okay. So you're gonna do that all the way around, and I went way off over here. Life happens. Once I get all of my lines off, nobody's really gonna notice that much anyway, so there you go. That's what it should look like. Okay. And I'm gonna do it on this one. Anybody have any questions on this?
It's hard not to twist yourself out of sync.
Yes, it is. So using the curved rulers is a little more challenging than the straight rulers. Because you're pushing on them, the pressure on the ruler is in different directions, not just one direction. So they're a little more difficult to control. Okay.
Oh, man. Just one.
All
I was like, well, no, when I do that.
right.
Oh, it's gonna miss it. You just buy in that spot. So you want the center line on your ruler kind of line with the center line.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, those, if you line up those outside edges and if you line up the center line, you know you're gonna be pretty much good to go. I think I
Lisa?
made, yes, ma'am.
Next time you get around your little magical notebook that my credit card hates, can you put me down for a can of Grippy?
Yes. Yes, I will.
Me and my
I-
scenic are gonna be friends.
I can tell you right now, I'm gonna take this white stuff off of the rest of my rulers and use Grippy, because it was way better than this.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
white stuff's not working so well for me with this.
Now, the Grippy worked, the ruler I had the Grippy on
I'm
was
thinking I
better.
like the Grippy
So crazy.
better.
Magical stuff. Magical stuff.
It's like I'm dreaming.
All right.
I know.
everybody doing their thing out there? I don't hear any screaming. No, no sobbing, no,
Oh, so our corners crisscross.
I don't hear any machines being thrown on the floor, so.
Yes.
Because we're all working so hard.
All right.
Did you already bury your center house?
I did.
Could you tell me again what the seam guide measurement should be when you start your arc?
Yes. Okay, so I'm lining up my, I have this at an angle for you guys. I'm lining up my arc ruler so that this line, which is 6 inches, lines up with my 6-inch block. So I have that line and this line lined up. And then you'll see I have a center line that I can line up with that center or whatever, center line as well. Then in this corner over here, I should be a 1/4 inch
Okay,
from the corner to the ruler. And that means when my foot gets to over here, since the needle is a 1/4 inch away from the outside of the ruler foot, my needle will end up in the corner. And that's what I want.
thank you.
Yep, yep.
Hello, Lisa.
Yep, yep.
Hi. I have been at work and at physical therapy, and I've been watching, but unable to be able to do the work with you. This is being recorded.
Oh, yeah. Yep. You'll get the
Okay.
recording link later on today.
Okay, great. So I'll be able to work on it this evening.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Y'all are doing a great job. People at physical therapy wanted to know what I was watching. I said, some lovely lady that is teaching us wonderful things.
Like, what are you doing?
I said, I'm taking a class.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, yep. Okay, this was my 4th one, so, and I went off the reservation a little bit right there too. Oh, well, life is rough all over. You can see how shook up I am about it.
But Lisa, I thought you were pregnant.
No. And I tell you what, by the time you put this whole daggone quilt together, ain't nobody gonna know the difference. So, I mean, I could go back in there, I could pick that whole line out and do it again, and it's just not worth my time to do. So nobody's gonna know the difference. All right, so then when you get all 4 of these done, you're gonna cut them down to 6.5 inches. So you're gonna, there went the first, okay, we're gonna cut it to 6.5 inches, and that's to accommodate the seam allowance for our sashing for when we put these together as a quilt as you go quilt, which we'll do that in the end. Okay, so 1/4 inch outside of your basting box, and that is gonna be your block. You should have a 6.5 inch square block when you're done. Okay. Now.
We should have based it 6.5 inch square.
You should have based it at 6. At 6. All right, so the next block we are going to do is labeled, what is it labeled? Let me tell you. 1. Where the next one we're going to do is 1, which is right there.
Oh, we're gonna do this.
Okay. So we're not going to do that very center block first yet, because as you can tell, there's quite a bit going on in that center block. So I want you guys to get used to your rulers before we go do something that intense. So that's probably going to be the last block we do, is the center block. So we're going to do this one next. And then we're gonna do this one next, and then the outside corner, and then we'll do that one. And then we're gonna do either that one or that one. I don't know. They're both complicated. So anyway, our next one is gonna be block 1. And you're gonna cut block 1. They are calling it, what are they calling it? They're calling it panel 1 on your cutting. So they want you to cut a 9 by 21. You need 4 9 by 21s. And I can tell you, we're probably not going to have the time to stitch 4 9 by 21s in an hour. There's quite a bit of stitching going on in those, but we'll probably get at least 2 done. So we'll do this one next month. Okie dokie smokies. Easy peasy lemon squeezies.
It's like spirograph.
It is like spirograph.
And you go fix the part you ripped. Pretend nobody watches.
Lisa, my machine is working now. Thank you.
They don't like the thread breaks. No, they don't.
No, they don't. But I
Okay.
was using a embroidery needle, so I don't know what I did.
An embroidery needle is a ball tip needle. It is probably not the best needle to use for this. You want the quilting needle, which is a pointy needle.
Oh, that's what I did wrong then. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you want a quilting needle. Okay.
Right.
So again, we're going to be on page 11 for next month. I tried to do the Zoom link repeating and it wouldn't let me because it wanted to put it on whatever, the first Wednesday, or I don't know what the deal was. It wanted to put it exactly the same number of days apart. So yeah, it wasn't a Wednesday. Yeah, I put it like 4 weeks from today, like literally 28 days from today. So it moved the dates on me. It wouldn't let me set it to the Wednesday.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Were 2 of the sessions on Tuesdays? I checked the dates and 2 of them are Tuesdays.
Why would I have done that?
Isn't it because you just said that it switched it instead of 4 weeks,
Oh,
the days of the month?
let me check into that. I don't know. I think I have it on my calendar as always on a Wednesday.
No.
No, on my calendar, I think it's always on a Wednesday.
Because next month was listed as April 15th, which is a Tuesday.
Which is probably not, hold on, I'll just run and check. I'll be right back.
Oh.
That might allow me the time to rip all this bad stuff out.
I'm hearing ya. Who said that?
Lisa O'Connell did.
Oh, come on, Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
Hello.
It's Anna.
I assumed so.
Okay. I did do that. I moved it onto the Tuesday next month because Open Sew is in here on Wednesday. And I didn't think you guys would want to hear all the Open Sew ladies giggling while we tried to do this. So I did move it to a Tuesday next month so that it didn't compete with Open Sew. So yes.
I think there were 2 of them on Tuesday.
Yeah, and it looks like
Okay.
I did that so that we could avoid the Open Sew people. Okay. So the dates that I gave you apparently are correct. So yay.
Diggity.
Please.
Yay. It's nice to be right once in a while.
Can you explain to me how to use the glider?
Yep. Okay, so your glider is like, you remember color forms from the 80s?
Vaguely.
Yeah, it's like a color form. So it's sticky tacky on the back. It comes with paper on it. You pull that paper off and then you've got a hole and that goes where your needle goes. So you just slide that over the top and press it down. And that's it.
Okay, because I sewed mine.
You did what to it?
It came along with my quilting. So
Oh, it wasn't stuck. Did you take the
Right.
paper off?
yes, I did, but
And it's still stuck? Or moved? It didn't stuck. It still didn't stuck. Okay, so over time, it will get, you can see mine has like fuzz and grody on it. So this
Mhm.
part right here has no sticky. If I take it over to the sink and run water over it, it'll take all the fuzz and grody off. I will let it air dry and it'll be sticky again.
okay. I haven't used it in a while.
Yeah, try that. Try
You
running
put-
it under cold water. And I've sewed over mine before. It's not gonna hurt it. Just,
Making you nuts with his scanner, huh?
Okay, thank you.
okay. Where's the one I sewed on? The one I sewed on is in my bag.
Oh, like this one?
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah. Yeah, it happens. It happens. It happens. Okay, we got any more questions for today?
Yes. How
Yes.
tight should our stitches be once you turn it over?
How tight should they be or how
Yeah,
long should they be?
both.
Okay, so how long they're gonna be is gonna be based on what you think looks nice. If you want to make little tiny stitches, go ahead. If you want to make bigger stitches, go ahead. That's up to you. Make your stitches the length that you think looks nice and then try to be consistent. As far as tight, I'm assuming you mean tension.
Yeah.
So you don't want to see your bobbin thread up top and you don't want to see your top thread on the bottom.
Okay. I just figured it would be a little bit tighter, but
No, I don't change my tension.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
So Lisa, do you just leave the numbers at 0 for length and 250?
So it's for your length. It's my
width, yeah.
machine. The default is set at 2.5.
Yeah.
I don't touch it because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter a hill of beans what your machine says in terms of stitch length, because the stitch length is decided by how fast the needle is going and how fast you move the fabric. So your machine has zero idea how long your stitches are because your feed dogs are down.
Okay. All right. And then one other thing I already forgot, the name of the needle.
The name of the needle?
Yeah,
The quilting needle, 9014
Quilting.
quilting?
quilting, not
Quilting,
embroidery.
yeah. Yeah, not embroidery, yeah.
All righty. Oh, this old mind.
Hey, it's better than the alternative.
Hey, that's what, you know what? I didn't want to turn 26 because my car insurance was going to go up. And my dentist sent me a card that said, "Happy birthday. Glad you're another year older." And then you open it up and it said, "Because the alternative sucks."
That's right. That's
All
right.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, anybody out there got any other questions?
She doesn't have a question. She has an exclamation.
Upside down.
No, we're good. All right, we're gonna call her a day for this one. These were pretty simple blocks. Practice makes perfect. Guys, if you only do
Stella.
this once a month and expect it to be perfect, it won't be. So you need to get in there and the more you practice moving a ruler against the foot with your feed dogs down and adjusting your speed to match what stitch length you want, the better you're going to be at that. The more you do this, the better you'll be at it. So it's all about repetition and practice. And done is better than perfect. Get over perfect. All right, you guys, we will send you off an email later today. And then you'll have the video recording that you can go to if you need to go back to it for anything. In the meantime, practice, and we'll see you next month. Bye.
Thank
One more
you.
thing, Lisa.